So apparently we got a third character for 1.3. I had no idea the Lynx was a character that existed until literally today, and I understand that I am a day late, but with Lynx being a 4-star quantum abundance character, she's probably going to be the last defensive option we needed for the full quantum team. Or maybe the only defensive option we needed for the full quantum team, depending on your free-to-play status. With her being 4-star in abundance, she has to compete with Natasha, who is a character that has a lot going for her already, if you know what I mean. Now I gotta say, for the design of Lynx, I really like the blonde hair. It's really cute. Now, one of the important things to note is what exactly is Lynx going to provide for the team overall. Her being quantum may not just be enough, or maybe it is enough, depending on exactly what you want out of the character. But I think as a standalone 4-star character, ignoring her being quantum altogether, she has to provide more value than Natasha, or else you really wouldn't ever go for this character over Natasha. And then Bailu and Luocha are both in a tier of their own, and Luocha being the best current abundance character, so I don't expect Lynx to actually power creep this character in any way. And if she was to power creep this character, that'd be a slap in the face for most Luocha owners. But we can expect her to do something more than just heal. We know Natasha cleanses alongside her healing, which makes this character a very valuable 4-star. But maybe the healing that Lynx provides is a lot more than Natasha. What we know about these characters currently is going to tell a lot about what Lynx can provide for the future of the game. However, we understand that Bailu is in a very good comparison. Even though Bailu is abundance, she is still a 5-star at her core. So she's going to do more than a 4-star would ever do. Hopefully. Now, I talked all about Bailu all the time. This character is extremely good. She's still the second best current abundance option. Maybe better in some situations, depending on the gear you have, and of course the circumstances you find yourself using the abundance characters in. But Bailu is going to be always good because of the way you built the character. You give her a ton of HP with her, all of her skills scaling off of HP and just healing the allies because all she really does is heal. You're going to get more value the more HP you give the character. She has a lot of healing with her elemental skill, which does have an RNG element to it, but you do get 3 procs of it, which in turn is a pretty nice chunk of healing. The invigoration buff that Bailu has allows the allies to be even more relatively tanky. Every time the allies are hit by the enemy, they will restore HP depending on Bailu's max HP. On top of that, Bailu also has a built-in revive in her kit, so whenever an ally takes immediate killing blow damage, she will revive that ally. This makes it very valuable if you're a player like me and you have tons of skill issue, or maybe you like playing with your brain off, or maybe you find yourself in circumstances where you were a little bit unlucky. Maybe your Ting Yun or your Bronya kept getting hit over and over and over again, because we all understand that the Harmony characters have the highest taunt values in the game. I don't think it's a joke sometimes. Bailu also overhealing the allies, which increases their max HP by 10%, which makes them even more tanky. So with all those things taken into consideration, you have a character that essentially is an abundance character at her core, but she has preservation-like traits, which allows her to make her allies relatively more tanky, increasing their HP, making them receive less damage, and giving them heals whenever they're attacked by the enemy, makes her a very safe and a very strong healer, on top of the revive she has for the team. Now, another thing to take into consideration, with a character like Bailu, giving her a ton of HP is going to make her relatively tanky. On top of that, with all of her skills scaling based off of her max HP, you only really get value building HP on this character versus a character like Luocha, who gets a lot more value with attack. Since Bailu only really needs HP, you can also build effective resistance on this character, which in turn makes her resist a lot of debuffs and makes the character a lot more easy to use. I say this all the time, but if the abundance character doesn't have effective resistance, then you essentially are missing out on having a character that heals and cleanses. And if your character that heals and cleanses and maybe even revives is CC'd, well, you're not going to get much value with the character, are you? What also makes Bailu even more interesting is depending on the amount of speed you have on this character, you can actually go skill point neutral with her. If you have high enough speed and high enough HP, you're going to overheal your allies, give your allies tons of healing with the invigoration buffs, which in turn you don't have to use your elemental skill every single turn. So you have a character that is very skill point neutral. Now, aside from him having the best hair in the game, he provides a lot of value, way more value than any other abundance character in the game can currently. What seems like a merchant just traveling is in turn a character that is way too overloaded. He provides so much more value than any other character we currently have of the abundance path. But he probably will be the strongest abundance character for a very long time. Luocha has built-in crowd control resist, which allows him to not necessarily need to build effect resistance. So you free up the need to put effort into building that stat on the character. Luocha's elemental skill allows this to be triggered whenever the ally reaches a certain HP threshold. So when you have a skill that heals the allies at a certain percentage automatically, it doesn't burn a skill point, which allows you to go skill point positive with the character depending on the circumstances. That elemental skill of Luocha also does remove a debuff from an ally, so he has the cleanse effect like Natasha and Bronya. Luocha removes a buff from all enemies and then does an AoE attack. The reason why this is very important is because he has a lot of value with a character like Seal, who wants to fight the Mara-struck enemies but struggles a lot of the time. You remove the buff from those enemies, which makes it to where they can revive whenever they're struck with a killing blow. That in turn makes it to where Seal can actually one-shot those enemies. And on top of that, those pesky little stoplight enemies, you're able to remove their damage immunity effect, which makes it to where Seal can hit those enemies and any other damage dealer can hit those enemies without having to miss out on damage because they have a built-in damage immunity. Luocha then is able to put down a field whenever he uses elemental skill and his ultimate after a certain amount of times, and this field makes it to where whenever the allies attacks the enemy, they restore HP, which is pretty darn good. So when you have a character that scales his healing based off of attack, you have what you think to be a very squishy healer. But with the built-in effect crowd control resist the character has, you're able to take advantage of the fact that you don't have to build effect resistance on this character. So in turn, you can give this character a lot more HP than you would on other characters. And the reason being is because he doesn't necessarily need all the attack in the world, even though his healing scales off of attack and he has damage multipliers that are decent enough. You don't necessarily have to build this character with tons of attack because he heals so much already. Now I can go on and on and on about Luocha, and I think he deserves his own video, which makes a lot of sense. He does way too much with such little effort. Other healer characters will have to compete with Luocha, so you probably can expect those characters to do more than what Luocha does, or maybe do things slightly different than this character does, but at least have equals amounts of values to Luocha, is what we hope those characters have. The problem we currently face in Honkai Star Rail is that we have a full quantum team, but it's very jank. You have a 50% chance of putting that quantum weakness that you have on your team onto the enemy, which isn't going to cut it for most players. You don't like RNG, and Lynx is going to provide the last slot of the team comp that you need to make the RNG go away. Now what worries me is that Lynx just healing is not going to be enough. The reason being is because the characters we have currently do more than just healing. Natasha is able to cleanse a debuff from an ally, which makes her better than a standard healer. Luocha is able to remove buffs from the enemy, is able to cleanse an ally, and is able to heal the allies passively, which in turn makes this character very skill point positive. So he's a very valuable 5-star character. And then Bailu is able to heal all the allies passively too, and she can go very skill point neutral in a lot of situations. On top of that, she's able to make the allies relatively more tanky, so she is essentially a healer and a preservation-like character at the same time. She has to do something differently that the current cast of abundance characters don't already do. The reason why I say that is because if you're using her only in the full quantum team, then you probably don't care what she's going to do because she's going to be the quantum defensive option that team desperately needs. However, if you're using her outside of the quantum team, you probably want to have a character that has more value than Natasha. But what can Lynx do that makes her more valuable than Natasha? If we take a look at Seal, we understand that Seal needs a couple of things. First of all, she is a character that is very hard to give energy to. Let me explain. Seal's ultimate costs 120 energy, and for a character that doesn't build any energy restoration rate, you're probably going to take a long time to funnel energy towards her ultimate, especially if you don't kill enemies. and get resets with your Resurgence talent. If you don't have access to her 4th constellation, you're not going to get 15 energy whenever you defeat an enemy, which in turn makes it to where Seal is able to get her ult much more consistently. And for most, if not every single free-to-play player, this is non-existent to your account. So what if we had a 4-star quantum healer that is able to heal and give energy to the team as well? How strong would that be? Maybe the quantum healer is also able to give attack, because in that current full quantum team, there isn't any character that necessarily gives attack to the team also, because Seal, Silverwolf both scale and attack. Now, what if this 4-star healer also may be cleansed? That'd be really strong. So maybe with this character being a 4-star healer that cleanses, maybe gives attack buffs with constellations, maybe gives energy with constellations as well, you'll have for what makes to be a very strong 4-star quantum character that is very strong in the full quantum team, that is also a very strong standalone character outside of the full quantum team. Now, I'm not going to lie, I'm very excited for Lynx because I've always wanted to have a full quantum team. The full imaginary team we have currently is making me jealous. That team is very fun. But I like quantum characters more than I like imaginary characters. It's my favorite element currently in the game. If you're like me, then you're probably waiting for a defensive option to take full advantage of the full quantum team with Silverwolf. But if you're not like me, you probably just want a better healer than Natasha, and you're not going for Luocha because you're skipping him and going for other characters like Blade and Kafka. I also understand where you're coming from. Hopefully this 4-star healer is able to provide more than just healing, because healing is not going to be enough or not going to cut it, because you get a 4-star healer for free in the game, and that character heals but also has a cleanse. So what would be the purpose of going for this 4-star character? Who knows? Twitch.tv/Toshio, the link will be in the description. Thank you for watching, and have a nice rest of your day. Peace.